Are you ready to explore the unknown? Dive into the world of the strange, mysterious, and unexplained with Eerie Expeditions magazine. Each issue is packed with spine-tingling tales, cutting-edge paranormal investigations, and exclusive insights into hauntings, cryptids, UFOs, and more. Whether you're a seasoned investigator or just love a good ghost story, Eerie Expeditions magazine has something for you. Join our growing community of truth seekers and adventure lovers. Subscribe today at EerieExpeditionsMagazine.com and unlock the secrets of the supernatural. Are you ready? That's EerieExpeditionsMagazine.com, where the extraordinary is just a click away. Dare to discover.
Welcome to the Gateway, broadcasting live from the edge of the Mojave, where the strange slips through the cracks. We are live on United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM. I'm your host this evening, C.L. Thomas. Tonight, I'm talking with Maria Schmidt. She's the owner and founder of Mysterious Adventures Tours. I cannot wait to get her on here. She's just great. I just love her. She's going to be discussing mapping the world's most mysterious places. But before we get into that, you've been listening to Sean Kelly with Into the Night right here on United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM. I hope everyone's well tonight. I see a couple people on the live chat from Facebook. Let me see if there's any comments. Let me see who's on here. Over the weekend, I rented a kayak to explore some of the crystal springs in Florida. And you can rent a kayak, you see manatees and wildlife and all sorts of other things. I set out to go look at manatees, but there wasn't any. Apparently they swim out whenever the currents get a little warmer, the lakes where they're from. But I did get to see a lot of Indian mounds, which people really don't think of that area in Indian mounds. They're usually more concerned with manatees and alligators and that sort of thing. But I got to see some of these things, and some of them are dating back 600 BC. So the least oldest one is like from the 16th century, and then they go all the way back 600 BC. You know how old that is, you guys? These mounds served as like burial sites and temple platforms, and they're called like residential middens, which means that's where they were putting their trash. So they ate a lot of shellfish. So they would just like kind of dump them in one area. It was kind of neat to see. It was a fascinating area, to say the least. But anyhow, I always have to tell you guys about the weather in Las Vegas. And you know what? In exactly 1 month, I won't be able to do that anymore because I'm not going to be living in Las Vegas. But anyhow, the weather here is 75 degrees with a chance of rain, which we never have a chance of rain. Tonight's guest, she's a bit of an explorer herself. Let's get Maria on here. Maria, welcome to the show.
Hi, Crystal. How are you? I was expecting for some handsome man to put me up on stage, and I figured, no, I got to do this myself. There was no handsome man backstage back there. So excited to be joining you here, Crystal. It's so long overdue. I know we're dear friends, and I respect the work you do. And I'm so really happy to be here joining with your audience.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming on. Now, I've been on several trips with you over the years. Mm-hmm. I think my first one was Romania, which that was such a fascinating and great trip. It was my absolute favorite trip. And then I went to Germany with you in Prague, and that was amazing as well. Mm-hmm. So tell us, like, how did you get into this?
It's everyone asks me about that, and it was actually almost divine navigation, I call it. Not divine intervention, but divine navigation. I am by training a registered nurse. I am now retired from that noble field. But my husband and I used to run a very haunted bed and breakfast in Ocala, Florida.
I
It was
didn't
called
know
Seven
that.
Sisters Sin. Yeah. And so I'm so happy I'm on the show to tell you all this stuff that you don't know about Maria. And it was a small inn. It was from 1889. It had 5 suites. We were on Ghost Hunters back in 2008 for the October episode, which was big for Halloween back in 2008 with Ghost Hunters. And the place was absolutely incredibly haunted. And that was before I really got into this field. I had experienced a lot of stuff while I was working as a nurse, as most nurses do.
Yeah, I'm sure.
They're close to death, especially when you deal with death and dying, right?
Mhm.
So there was not a day that we did not experience some activity at the inn. It was inspiring. I think with all the power this inn had, not only was it a very historical inn, or historical building, I should say, but it also had treasures. It was embellished with treasures from all around the world. They had doors made from Bali that were just engraved with those most glorious artwork. The previous owner to us of the inn was a pilot, and she was a freight pilot. In fact, she used to fly around with John Travolta a lot, and he lived near.
Maybe.
As you know, John also does a lot of air flight as well. But Bonnie, that was her name, she used to go and deliver cargoes, freights all around the world, and then used to go to these unique places and bring back some of these remnants and artifacts. And that's what our inn was just embellished. Imagine the energies this brought in. So what we had was 7 residents in our inn that I know that I can talk to, interact with. We saw apparitions, we heard voices. They used to talk to me all the time. Just little incidents. I had 2 playful little children. Every single day, Crystal, we had something. And so 50% of the folks that came to visit us, it was such a gorgeous inn. I'm not just saying that, but it was the truth. With all these embellishments, we also had canopy beds, whirlpool tubs, working fireplaces. They were just the most exotically beautiful 5 suites that you've ever seen in a bed and breakfast.
Wow.
The other 50% came out because they heard about the ghosts and the hauntings there. And we soon realized, when Bob, my husband, he used to greet the guests coming in and says, "Why are you here?" And they said, "Oh," he knew they were here for the ghosts, right? It wasn't about the beautiful, rooms and suites, etc., or the beautiful breakfasts that we prepared. It was about those ghosts. And so they wanted to hear. I would come in after hours, just to give them a few treats and meet at the parlor. And we would have all these phenomenal interactions with the spirits. I mean, they were absolutely incredible. And they were responsive. They always showed off to our guests. These were real EVPs caught. They were just not like little things. They were substantial evidence. And so then we discovered that the reason they came out to these old properties was because of the ghosts. And we realized then, Crystal, that one of the main gifts that these historical properties that need to be preserved had one thing as a commodity, and it's their spirits and their ghosts. And that's when I thought that maybe there is such a thing as supernatural tourism that brings people in. And as a side note, they would help preserve these historical buildings. So from there, we created this little engine called Haunted Journeys, because it's that I went from this, getting people to come in to help me sustain our building, because believe me, old buildings need sustaining and they're very costly. I said, there's a lot of people out there that need that too. So collectively, we started connecting with all these old inns, the prisons, anything that was old, historic, and haunted that needed to be preserved. And we did it with a lot of elegance, a lot of respect. One of the things that we did from a spin-off of Haunted Journeys was the world's largest ghost hunt. And we had our very first in 2016, which was a celebration of what we actually acquired, National Ghost Hunting Day. And so on that day, we did the world's largest ghost hunt. And at one point in its epic moment, I think it was in the third or fourth year before the pandemic, we actually had 50 teams around the world in 6 continents, 13 countries. And we did not collect a dime for this. So they all ghost hunted, charged a little bit of money that all went to the historic property. So we did tens and thousands of dollars that we helped energize and bring some of these properties that people have never heard of. And through the world's largest ghost hunt, they got a little kickoff, and they actually are very prominent properties today. I can tell you a list of those that we helped kick off on the world's largest ghost hunt. And today,
you worked with Brian Kano on that, didn't you?
Brian was absolutely an influencer in helping me energize the first one. Absolutely. Because when I went first, Brian Cano he just loved the Seven Sisters. And if you ever talk to Brian, ask him about the Seven Sisters, and he'll tell you it was a magical property. But so we became really tight friends, and we both respected each other's ideas and synergetic, what ifs, And I buzzed Brian one time. I says, I'm thinking about doing America's largest ghost hunt. And he said, Maria, why stop there? Let's go international. Let's do the world's largest. I said, Brian, this is just something small that I just want to get a few properties around the United States and celebrate National Ghost Hunting Day on the very same time. He says, no. We got to do this around the world. I know people in Australia. I know people in the UK. We'll bring them in. And we did. And every year, and then we created a thing called the Bridge. And the Bridge was, we did these ghost hunts, no matter where on the time zones you were, at the very same time. And it elevated the energies. It's what they call collective consciousness, right? And the collective consciousness energized the spirit world. The connection got smaller, and we met on the Bridge. And I can tell you, we had so much activities on that particular day. More apparitions because we collected data, and then we shared it with the big reveals that we did. It was extraordinary. This little fellow from Albuquerque, he actually created with a random number generators, and he actually measured the energies that were going around. So with collective consciousness, and he did divulge that during the world's largest ghost hunt, that thing peaked, and then it came down. So we did affect the dimensions or the energies out there with that collective consciousness. And that's why we had so much activity during that day.
That's really interesting.
And from there, I learned about all the different lands and all the different people around the world. I got to know people.
Oh, that's how you.
And that's what spun off Mysterious Adventure Tours. Because I said, I can do this a lot better and support these properties.
And that's exactly what you do.
Mm-hmm.
These aren't your ordinary trips. When you take a trip with you, man, I always feel like I need a vacation after taking one of your trips because you're just on the go. But you get to see so much and experience. What I love about it is you just experience so much different stuff. Like the Romania trip, we went from Transylvania, we saw the mountains, the Carpathian Mountains, and then we end up in a little village where we have a homemade cooked meal.
Yeah, wasn't that great?
Yeah, I'm going to let you talk about that.
Well, that trip was extraordinary. It was one of our first trips to Romania. We've been there, 7, 8 times already. It is a staple in our Halloween offerings. We always do Romania, of course, for Dracula's Castle. That was one of the one of the first trips we took, as you know.
Yeah.
It was just a small little group, right? There were
It
no
was-
ambassadors. It was just us, and we had what, 12 people
Yeah,
altogether,
13 people.
13 people. It was just so phenomenal, and we did the most unique things that we normally would not do. And true, there's been other tours, they call it Dracula tours and all that, but I wanted ours to be a little bit different, and I wanted to retrace the history, the impact of Vlad Tepes, the Impaler, right?
Mhm.
And what his influence over Romanian history and all those mystical legends. And of course, everybody's ever heard of the curse of Vlad Tepes and how that, penetrated into all the spots we went to. It, it was a long trip because we had to cross the Carpathian Mountains, right?
Mhm.
To get
Yeah,
to
I
that
remember that.
beautiful castle called Corvin, where Vlad the Impaler was imprisoned for 7 years. And that's where, with the help of mice and other rodents, he learned how to impale,
I did not
let
know
it drip
that.
out, and then
I
eat
missed
them.
that piece.
Yeah, that's what we did. That's where it was that was his playground to learning how to impale. He used to impale the mice and the rodents in that prison. And so we went down to the dungeon. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Mhm.
But that was wonderful. And then, of course, we went back to, of course, Bucharest and over to
Mhm.
Bran, where Bran Castle is at, better known as Dracula's Castle,
Yeah.
which is always fascinating, but really is not a portal of supernatural energy. It's not. It's almost anemic there.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
grounds are very, very
The
kind
grounds
of,
are. I agree. Totally.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Corbin Castle, though, Kimberly and I kind of walked away from the group for a little bit. When we did the investigation that night,
Mhm.
we went to the backside of the castle while you guys were all in the dungeon. We ended up catching a lot of EVPs from that night.
The place is it was
Yeah,
on fire. I truly believe that we even communicate with Vlad Tepes himself, at one
right.
point. I've gone to that castle on several little trips that I've gone to Romania with. It's always one of my favorite spots. But yes, that place is extremely haunted. I think was it on your tour that I got lost? And it was one of them. I thought it was yours, and I couldn't find my way back to the group. But this is a big,
Yeah, it's a big
big.
place. I could see why you would get lost in there.
It was a little scary, but I found myself back, and yeah, and yeah.
The bearded
Mhm.
says, "Is this the original live or is this another platform?" No, we're actually live. We're live right now. We're being streamed out. So if you turn your radio dial on, you could probably hear us on 107.7. So we are live. What, in your opinion, you've been all over the world doing this, and you stayed in so many different haunted locations. Do you think, what's your theory on why are these places so haunted? Why are spirits hanging around? Or do we actually bring the energy with us to call them
Crystal, that's a
forward?
really good question. I think it's a medley of both. We come in, none of us, and I think you remember that, are stellar investigators. We're not professional. I mean, we are, but we're not. A lot of us just kind of like it or enthusiastic about ghost hunting procedures and all that, but none of us are really. So we bring in that awe, that wonder, that energy. And that's extremely, what's the word I want to say? It just feeds the already existing energies. All the places that we go to that are known to have some haunted history also has history of a lot of battle scars, right? A lot of feuds, a lot of bloodshed, maybe a good romantic story that had failures. There's a lot of emotion historically that comes through. Every place is very different. So we're talking a lot about the haunted places, Crystal, but we go places that are not necessarily haunted,
Right.
like when we go to Egypt. It has got an intensity of antiquity, of the penetration of the deities and how that, I don't know how to explain it, but it's not you don't get hauntings in places like Egypt, places like Greece, old ancient Greece. You get more of a very deep down, almost antiquity type of energy.
Like a vibrational kind of, you get that with Native American. Like I just experienced this in Florida at the Native American mounds. It's not so much the haunting, it's that it's almost like an introspective energy that you tap into when you tap into that agent, the supernatural, what am I trying to say, vibrational consciousness almost.
Yeah.
It's the best way I can describe it. And
that's a really good description. That's exactly what it is. But it's also empowered by power. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
You'll get, like when we were in Egypt and when we were in Greece, we got in touch with some of the deities that are found only on on the historical books. But it was not a haunting. It was almost like you said, an energy, a very heavy, powerful energy that brings you to a spot that you yourself travel to.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't travel to us. It's like it takes you, elevates them to them. It's unexplainable. And the lovely thing about that, Crystal, is that when we take people to these places, we can't find that here in the United States, right? Maybe
Right.
on
some of the Native American stuff you
Native
can.
Americans, absolutely. I stand corrected. No, but it's true. And it's got that same kind of, that power, intensity that I did.
And it can be very healing, be very awakening and introspective.
Very purposeful.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're waiting for you, but not as a haunting element, but as it's almost like a ghost mixed with elementals. I don't know how to explain it, but it's definitely its own creature, its own type of composition. It's absolutely incredible. And until you feel that and discover that, you haven't really gone into what we call really supernatural experiences. But it's so true.
Have you experienced anything that was kind of like alien at all in any of your trips? Because I know you've been to Peru and they have a lot of that alien technology that, they think it's agent alien technology and things like that.
I think the closest one, and I don't know if I want to call it like a UFO alien type of intervention or, connection, was in Greece. And we caught these, like, I don't want to call them orbs, but they were like spectral rods of light, different codes of color. It was like nothing we've ever seen. And this is after we did the Lutheran mysteries, which, oh my God, and we're doing that in September again. And guys, if you want something powerful, those rituals we do that celebrate the Lutheran mysteries, which are centuries and centuries old. Anyway, but right after that, there was a lot of kind of that, I don't want to call it like there's a spacecraft up there, or, a little green man that comes out of the woods. It was like really, and we all saw that. We all saw those little spectral rods of color up on the sky that didn't really fit into any perceptions that we have. That's why I call it so authentic, because it's not something we even imagine. So that was something that was very, very special. But I think we haven't really gotten into ufology a lot in our tours. We are going to be going to Peru. We are going to be doing ufology there, because that's one of the centerpieces of UFO work and studies and research. So we're really looking forward to that. So primarily we've been more involved with the hauntings of that sort of, and also the metaphysical, the power,
Yes.
Has
anybody ever experienced like healing or anything like that on your trips?
Oh God, when we went to Peru, Absolutely. It was all the Andean kind of healing. We learned how to protect ourselves, heal. We went through we went into a progression of ceremonies, and it finalized into what they call the carpe. And only about half of us got selected to be involved with the carpe, which was a really distinguished position to be in. And it wasn't governed by anyone but the cocoa leaves. And the Andean uh, healers would take cocoa leaves, and the cocoa leaves would talk to them. And so we would go and present ourselves to the cocoa leaves with the Andean healer, and then they would just do things. And they said, no, you're not going to have a carpe. I'm sorry, you can watch, but you're not going to be part of the carpe. I was very fortunate to be part of the carpe, and so was Bob. And that was in itself the most magical moment in our lives. We'll never forget that. If anybody's out there, please listen to this and you're part of that Peruvian trip, make a little comment on that, because no one's going to believe me what we've been through there. It was so incredible.
I know that you have one trip posted, and I've been to Germany with you, which I love Germany. I never thought I would.
What about Prague? Prague was amazing.
Huska Castle is still my favorite.
Yeah.
But you have a trip coming up in the Black Forest, I believe.
No, we had to skip that one over to 2027. That's fine. But we're doing, in Germany, we are doing the Frankenstein tour. Now, that's pretty amazing. It's the first ever Halloween Frankenstein tour ever done, ever in the universe. And we're following the footsteps of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
So interesting.
We start in Geneva, Switzerland, where Mary Shelley's from. We'll even go visit the cemetery she used to do a lot of work in and just follow her trail.
I didn't know that she was into that.
Oh,
I had no idea.
You need to read about that. She was a naughty girl at the cemetery, if you know what I mean. And then we go over into Germany and go to that little town. I think we went there. The Frankenstein tour in town.
Yes, yes. We went to, was it a castle or something?
Well, we went to the castle, the Frankenstein Frankenstein Castle, but we went to that little remote village where the character, the monster, lurked, right? And started, and then we went to the College of Medicine, which was now a museum where Dr. Frankenstein was practicing. So we're going to go ahead and do that. But what I'm so excited about that, and of course I'm going to see if you're old enough to remember who was the very first Frankenstein monster portrayed.
I don't remember.
Boris Karloff.
Who is she?
Boris Karloff was the original monster and the very first Frankenstein. He was up there with Bela Lugosi, all the big silver screen monster portrayers. So Boris Karloff, he's long gone. He's been gone like 50 years ago. But his daughter is still alive and will be joining us, Sarah Karloff, through Frankenstein's tour. So we're very excited because she can't wait to meet all the fans of Boris Karloff.
The story she's going to be able to tell on that one.
Oh, she is a hoot. She's in her 80s. Yes, she's at the prime of her life, but she's such I don't know if I can say kick-ass person. I said real quick, there you go. She's a whippersnapper, absolutely incredible lady, lots of stamina, energy, and she'll be accompanying our tour. And just basically, she's got so many tales and stories to tell about her father, Boris. Mm-hmm.
So, out of all the tours that you have done, what is your absolute favorite place that you've been to, and why?
Oh, God, that's such a hard question. It really is. one of my favorite countries, and it's so mundane when I say this because it's a lot of people's favorite country is Ireland. I feel like the the energies and the spirituality of Ireland is off the charts. It really is. Ireland is a very special country that is full of these elementals where people absolutely accept them and they're part of their culture. All the fairies, right? All the
Yes.
banshees and all these, and the polkas and all the stuff. People absolutely have them as part of their existence. People talk, walk, and respect their fairies. I'm, this is not just a little spooky stuff that folk tales and legends that are shared from generation to generation. They're absolutely play a major part in their socialization there. Um, the Irish, because of this intense spirituality that they carry in their heart, are the most gracious and fun-loving and kind people. Just amazing. So I love to visit the country of Ireland for that reason. Now, that being said, there's certain locations that will always be very, very special in my heart. Lots of them are up in Romania, Crystal. You know what I'm talking
Such a
about.
gorgeous country.
Oh, God, such a great. Remember the Witches' Pond? Where
Yes.
they gather with the gypsies, and well, they're not really gypsies. We shouldn't call them gypsies, but they're witches, right? The most famous witches of the world, as they claim themselves to be, right?
Exactly.
So much fun. But that place is intense, as you
It
know.
is really intense.
Very intense. And
Mhm.
so they're not the more so iconic spots that I find to be the most engaging, but the ones that were. There's one in Scotland. It's called Dunino Den, and it's in a ravine that you kind of climb down into it, and it's in Scotland near Edinburgh. And you go down, and also this whole ravine, including a stream of water with a big fairy tree, and the rocks have carved out ancient faces on it. Place is so incredible. And on top, before you actually bounce into the ravine, it's a table where the druids used to do sacrifices.
Oh, wow.
So that place is, no one's ever heard of Danilo Den. And
I've never heard of this place.
yeah, it's in the back of a church, and so you don't even pay to go inside. It's just one of those really that's what I love. I love those kind of places that no one's ever heard of, right? That are so intense with magic and with lore and with.
I love that too. So how do you find these places?
I have my ways, Krista. I can't tell you, otherwise I have to kill you. Yeah. What it's nothing very sophisticated. When you start traveling, you start talking.
Mm.
People talk to you and you listen, and they'll tell you where to go.
What's interesting, the travel thing changes you.
Oh God.
Like every trip that I've been on, it's like you leave a little piece of you behind somehow and you pick up a new one. It's hard to explain. So how, in all your travels, how have you changed over the years?
I've become much more patient and more acceptance of cultural, what's the word I want to say? What could be cultural offenses, and even when, and I'm going to go way, way, way back. Ready? Way
Yes.
back. And it was not a paranormal supernatural tour. It was actually one that I did as on a clinical missionary trip as a nurse. I went to Honduras. And we went through these basically fourth world countries. What I mean by fourth world is like they had nothing. And we went there to serve with Department of Endocrinology, tropical diseases out of the University of Cincinnati, and a bunch of us went in there, and so it was a clinical missionary trip, and there were physicians and nurses, etc. I was one. I think I was the only one out of 30 that spoke Spanish. So that was a good contribution. I felt very special because I was able to communicate with them. But they did some things that I learned to accept. And there was one time, and this has nothing to do with the supernatural, but it was a challenge that I received that I became tolerant, that I would not have been tolerant before. There was a woman that had, 3 children, and it's always the last one that is the weakest, because when they start weaning, they don't have any more food. So the supply for food starts at the oldest and comes down, right, to the youngest. And when they start weaning, so we received the child, what they call catexic. In other words, they were the big belly, and they were into protein deficiencies, and really, really sick on deathbed. So we went ahead and gave them lots of milk, etc. To get him. We all brought supplies in from the States and stuff. But anyway, so we gave him a little bit. He says, "Come back tomorrow or in 2 days," and she did. And he was worse because she gave the milk to the other 2 children.
Oh, no.
I was angry. I was upset. It's a primal thing that you have to culturally understand. It's survivor of the fittest. And it's not just practice in the animal kingdom, as you know. But these folks were so primal, and that's what their culture was all about. That's all they knew. That's all they knew. So I became tolerant, and they took me because I was angry. I was upset. Why would you do that? And luckily, I didn't say anything in front of her. I didn't want to, I did not want to hurt her. But they took me to the side and they said, "Understand this." And I think that was an example of what travel does for you. It has you accept some of these deviations in what we consider proper things in life. And there were challenges. On the supernatural end, I am a Christian. I love my Bible, my Jesus Christ, and I'm not a thumper, but that is my faith, and that's who I praise. Well, there are places that are not Christian based, that we went to visit, but they have other symbols that are so close to what my faith is based on. So you learn how to adapt your faith to accommodate other cultures, and see that even though we're so different, we're all still the same.
Right.
And there are these codes that are much higher than what we are, that as good people we follow. That not necessarily a 10 commandments, but it could be something that's very otherworldly, manuscripts that we don't understand, but yet they're so similar. So that kind of cultural adaptation, to know that we're not the only ones. There's so much out there, Crystal. You know what I'm talking about. That you have to step outside the safety of our borders, the safety of our en-suites, bedrooms, and know there are people that sleep on dirt floors, and they're quite content and happy with that.
Similarly, like how do different cultures approach the supernatural compared to what we see in the U.S. with all the ghost hunting and things?
It's really, that's an excellent question, because there are very, very, very deep, what's the word I want to say, differences, right? In the equipment that they use, the techniques that they use. Some of the areas that we go to are very primal, and they use tools that we would never use. Like up in the UK, they love their Ouija boards. They hunt with their Ouija boards, and they don't think about this stuff that we say, oh my God, you're going to get possessed. And all that, you know? For
You can
them,
see
it's their K2, it's their K2 meter, it's their Ouija board, you know? But every place, and then when you go to other places, like, for instance, the ancient lands, they don't do as much of the equipment and all that. They do more of a very almost like a subconscious metaphysical type of communication investigations, very primal. So they don't rely on as much gadgets like we do, you know. They use more of their senses, they use more of their intuitions, and they actually, in my opinion, are better investigators because they go deep inside that communication with spirit. Whereas here, we're stuck on that obulus and look to see what the next word is. They don't do that in other countries, and especially the ones that are more ancient. They rely on that spiritual communication that they get, that they feel, without the help of a tool.
Yeah, I've noticed that in Romania with the famous witches.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, what can someone, so if someone wants to sign up for your tour, you have a bunch of them on your website. It's mysteriousAdventurestours.com.
Mm-hmm.
I know you just got a brand new website for listeners out there.
Yeah.
If you want to check this out, I highly recommend one of her trips. Every time I've been on a couple of her trips now, and every single time I walked away changed in some way. And it's like, I don't know. And you're with a group of people who are very like-minded. So you meet friends very fast on these trips. They can be difficult sometimes, you know, long travel days and things like that. But it's, you know, you have to keep in mind you're not going to a hotel or a bed and breakfast for a week. This is quite different. You're going on a tour. So
You're going on experience.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, Crystal, that I found that I never imagined when I got started on this is a transformation that happens. And it happens naturally. It's not something we craft or anything we planned on, but there's an absolute transformation that people go through. And we go through it together, of the like, you know what I'm talking about, where you create this family and elevates this connection of transformation. I've had people that were just cried with joy because they had been carrying a burden in their lives for many years, and until they got to a specific place in Ireland, and there's a standing stone, and they hugged that standing stone, and they basically just kind of took its energy in. And when they released it, they were like, I said, I don't know what's just happened to me, but I'm not the same person that hugged this stone. Something does transform you. And it's more than just the history or this, you know, the metaphysical power of that place. It's something with a combination of all the people to get the collective. Remember, we're talking about the collective consciousness. Collectively, we bring it up to a level that actually changes people, whether you're ready or not. It does happen. And that's what makes, I think, I never even expected that. Such an incredible plus to what I do, because I have seen so much tears of joy. And there's never a day that I don't speak with someone that went into one of our tours and say, Maria, that tour changed my life. It gave me a new direction. You're one of them. It gave you a new mission.
It right? did. It did. Absolutely. I started a whole magazine out of it.
Well, you're a little bit,
yeah,
wonderful, you know, just a new level of change. But a lot of folks have volunteered that information to me and say, it made a difference in my life in one way or another. And it had nothing to do with the itinerary. It had nothing to, it was just a collectiveness of 10 people. I mean, I'm sorry, of 10 days with the same people, with the same family, having this exchange, drinking that beer at the pub every night, laughing and cackling and, lurking in the dark in the woods with these people.
Going to the most scary place ever.
And the most intriguing places, places that you would never even think about being in, that there's something really magical there that you have to change. And it's usually to the best, to the better of you. So I like to think, at least. Yeah.
Has there ever been, I have to ask because we are a paranormal channel, is there any place that was just too scary for anybody to go to?
Yeah. Diwali Cave in Greece. Oh my God, that place was insane. And if anybody of my folks out there comment or hearing this, please, if you remember Diwali Cave, I'm sure you can validate what I'm about to say. That place had, I don't know, people just walked in not knowing what to expect. They just some of them became sick. They had to turn away. It's a portal to the underworld in Greece. It's very ancient. It's known to have lots of connection with the deities as well. And there's a little side chapel that was built on top of the cave, and I think they did it on purpose.
Yeah.
And it was lots of artifacts in there, especially a lot, of course, with Saint Michael, the protector. Because that place is so wonderful. Now, I had no issues with it. I did feel the energy there, but fortunately, I was able to go in and face it and not have a bad reaction to it. There were some that were just horrible. Huska Castle is another one.
I was going to say, Huska Castle was it for me. That place.
Insane.
Wow, it's insane. I just remember being in that dungeon area, and that there was like a giant metal, I think it was a crucifix that was upside down, hanging from the ceiling. And that thing, it was me and Kimberly. We were down in there trying to get some EVPs. And this is when everybody else was upstairs. You know how we always break away and go do something. Everybody else was upstairs doing that table tipping thing. That cross started swinging back and forth on its own. And Kimberly and I just looked at each other like, what did we just walk into? It was crazy.
I bet our activity up on the I think it was the third floor, where we had the ballroom, where we had the seance, and that table tilting was like dancing across the floor. We were not pushing it. That table was moving by itself. But I do believe that we ignited some type of energy there. That's probably what you got down in the dungeon.
Yeah, it's something. And I remember just walking away going, I'm going to have to do some cleansing or something after this place. So, yeah, that place was
on fire. Fire. Yeah. And where else do you find something like that in the United States of America? Even in tribal land, you're not going to find a place like Huska.
Yeah, that was just, I can't even put that in words, what we experienced in that place. But
it's very dark. Yeah, Diwali Cave, Joe Fox. Look it up and you can see a little bit. It's another one of those places that is unheard of. No one ever goes there. But it's surrounded with natural marble stone from Greece. We traveled, I think it was almost like a quarter of a mile or half a mile to get into it. I mean, it was a long walk, but it was so worth it. There was another place that we went to that was a portal of hell, which is a gateway to the underworld. It was Greece's September. You got to be there, guys. I mean, I can tell you right now, that was one of the tours that I will never forget. Wow. All of them, I will never forget. Each of them has put some kind of marker on my heart. Yeah.
So whenever someone signs up for one of these trips, you kind of
Mhm.
guide them in a way. Because I remember the first time I went, I didn't really know how to travel overseas that well. I was
Yeah,
pretty bad at it.
that's so true because they're inspired by what we do as opposed to that they're travel bugs, right?
Right.
And it was like 50% of the people that signed up didn't even have a passport, you know? And so what we do is a lot of support, and we have a series of 4 Zoom calls. And the first one is how to arrange your flights and how to get the best deal, because we're not travel agents. We don't get your flights. And that's a plus for you because you get the better flights when we teach you the tricks on how to get good flights. You know that because
Mhm.
you're a seasoned traveler. There are tricks on getting the best flights out there. And then the second one, we go into the currency, changes in communicating in a foreign land, all the things that are important when you go to, an international location, things that you don't even think about, what to pack, what are some of the food expectations in an area, what is the normal tipping, what should you expect to tip in this particular country, because everyone's different. Any kind of traditions and cultures that you have to be aware of and sensitive to. When we went to Japan, for instance, you don't shake hands like this, like we do Americans, when you offer both hands. When you offer something, you offer it with both hands. And it's just all these customs that we need to respect where we're going. We're guests in their land.
Right.
We don't go there to adapt our Americans to their. No, we are part of the West. So we have to respect, we have to learn how, to conduct ourselves with that.
Right. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
one of the trips I've been on, I was with a group of people that was the first time that they ever been out. And just as an example, the waiters overseas, it's quite different. So first of
In
all,
Romania.
some of them
Oh,
don't accept tips, and they will not come to the table unless they're called. And the reason being is to go out to eat is a big deal. It's family time. It's time with their friends. So if a waiter continuously comes to the table, it's considered rude. So you have to
mhm.
call them over. And I remember sitting at the table, and they didn't know that. And when they started saying, "Oh, this place, they don't serve you or whatever," and I said, "You have to call them over, or they're not going to come. That's just how
Okay,
it
so
is
that's
here."
a perfect example of
Hmm.
not understanding, and then
Right.
we interpret that as rude,
Yeah.
right?
I said it's
Mhm.
quite different. I tried to explain it to them, and they were like, "Oh, that's how that."
Yeah. And that's a preparation that we have to invest on people so that we adapt to them.
Mhm.
Um, and we also talk a little bit about, the spirituality of that place and prepare them to what to expect. Like in Germany, the common German folks there they don't talk about the dead. They don't talk about the haunted there. It's
Right.
almost taboo. But when you go to Prague, the country right next door, they got 2
Story.
haunted museums in Prague.
I didn't realize
There's,
they had a haunted museum. See, I missed so
they
much.
have 2. There's 2 haunted museums. It's about museums about the haunted in Prague. Meanwhile, next door, Germany, you can't talk about the haunted. So it's amazing what how one culture differs from the other. Mhm.
Well, Maria, we are out of time, so
How can that possibly
I
happen?
know all the time. How can people find you and check out the tours if they're interested?
If you go to mysterious adventures with an S, because we have multiple adventures, mysterious adventures tours, just like my little sign where my name Maria is.com. You'll find them all there. And hopefully, if we can help you, just give us a call and say, Maria, where should I go? Help me out here. And our team is ready to help you. We just invite everyone. Even if you travel, if you're a seasoned traveler, you're never going to have a tour like ours because we just kind of are a little edgy.
Hmm.
Our trips are not your traditional ones, but they embrace some solid, important concepts. Uh,
Right.
transformation of life, of friendships, of spirit of love. We make the world a little smaller. Yeah.
Well, Maria, thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to me tonight.
Thank you for having me. Oh, it's so good to see you on this side of your world. Love it. Love it. Thank you, Crystal.
You're welcome. So that's Maria Schmidt. She's the owner of Mysterious Adventures Tours. And I'm serious. If you haven't taken one of those trips, I highly recommend. I don't mean to make the show, an infomercial or anything like that, but her trips are amazing. They're just, you see stuff that you would never in a million years get to see otherwise. So highly recommend. Definitely take like the Romanian trip or something like that. If you see it on there, sign up. It's a really great deal for what you get. It's mysteriousAdventurestours.com. So you've been listening to The Gateway, broadcast from the edge of the Mojave, where the strange slips through the cracks, live on United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM New Orleans. I want to thank my guest again, Maria. If you've missed the show and you're just now tuning in, you can catch it again. I captured it on YouTube, so you can go to my YouTube channel and play it, or you can go to the station. They have it on their website as well. So UPRN, I forget who the show is that's coming on after me, but stay tuned because there's another great broadcast coming right up after mine. Thank you all for listening to the Gateway Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, leave a review, or share it with a fellow traveler of the strange and unexplained. And until next time, see you on down the road.